Today we are going to explore a theme that challenges much of what we thought we knew about the Middle Ages: the history of hygiene, sanitation, and the human struggle against the invisible forces that threatened their existence. Before continuing with the video, remember to subscribe to the channel for more documentary narratives like this one. Imagine yourself walking through the narrow streets of a European city in the 14th century. The air carries odors that the modern mind would have difficulty processing. Carts creak over uneven stones, while merchants hawk their wares. Children run among the adults, dodging puddles, whose contents are better left uninvestigated. In the distance, cathedral bells mark the passing of the hours. This is medieval Europe, a world that for centuries has been portrayed as a period of darkness, ignorance, and absolute filth. But does this image correspond to reality? The answer, as we will see, is much more complex and surprising than one might imagine. The fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century is often pointed to as the moment when European civilization lost its achievements in terms of sanitation and public hygiene. The magnificent Roman aqueducts, the thermal baths where citizens bathed regularly, the sewage systems that carried waste away from inhabited areas, all of this supposedly fell into decay along with the empire that had built them. It is a seductive narrative, but incomplete. What happened in the following centuries was something more subtle, a transformation, not a complete disappearance. Hygiene practices adapted to the new political, economic, and religious realities that were taking hold over the ruins of the ancient world. Christianity, which had become the dominant spiritual force in Europe, exerted a profound influence on all aspects of daily life, including people's relationship with bodily cleanliness. Contrary to what many believe, the Church did not condemn the practice of bathing itself. What some clerics criticized was the Roman style of mixed bathing, where men and women bathed together, often without clothes. This promiscuity was seen as incompatible with Christian values. However, Church fathers such as Clement of Alexandria and Tertullian explicitly recognized the benefits of bathing for health and hygiene. They encouraged their followers to keep their bodies clean, provided it was done in a morally appropriate manner. The Church not only tolerated public baths, but actively promoted their existence. Throughout the early Middle Ages, popes ordered the construction of bathing facilities near monasteries and pilgrimage sites. Basilicas and monasteries frequently contained their own bathhouses. Pope Gregory the Great, who lived in the 6th century, exhorted his followers to value bathing as a legitimate bodily necessity. Far from being centers of moral corruption, these facilities were seen as spaces where the faithful could care for their bodies, which after all were considered temples of the Holy Spirit. The great cities of the medieval Christian world maintained a tradition of public baths that dated back to antiquity, adapted to the sensibilities of the new era. Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire, was famous for its magnificent bathhouses. The city, which saw itself as the legitimate heir to Rome, preserved many of the hygiene practices of the ancient world. Travelers visiting Constantinople were impressed by the cleanliness of its inhabitants and the sophistication of its sanitary facilities. Antioch, another great Byzantine city, was also known for its elaborate baths. The Byzantine world kept alive a flame that many believed had been extinguished with the fall of Rome. In Western Europe, the situation was different, but not as bleak as the stereotypes suggest. Paris, Regensburg, Rome, Naples, and many other cities had public baths where inhabitants could wash. The city of Nuremberg in Germany stood out for its attention to public hygiene. Its rulers, aware of the importance of cleanliness for the population's health, maintained no fewer than 14 functioning bathhouses. There were regulations that required residents to clean the portions of the street in front of their houses or commercial establishments. Municipal authorities took measures to ensure the supply of relatively clean water through channels, conduits, wells, and public fountains. From the 11th century onwards, with the growth of European cities, the issue of hygiene became increasingly urgent. The increase in urban population created unprecedented challenges for sanitation. Fortunately, many of the large cities were situated near rivers or on the seacoast, which facilitated both water supply and waste disposal. Municipal councils developed policies to keep cities minimally habitable. There were fines for those who threw trash in the streets, although these regulations were frequently ignored. The tension between the ideal of cleanliness and the chaotic reality of medieval urban life was constant. Medieval bathhouses were much more than places to wash. They were social centers where people met to talk, do business, and relax. The most sophisticated establishments offered baths in tubs, steam baths, massages, haircuts, and shaves. Some went further, making medical procedures available such as simple dressings, cupping, and bloodletting. This last practice, which seems strange to us today, was considered essential to balance the four humors of the body: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. The humoral theory, inherited from the ancient Greeks, dominated medieval medical thought and profoundly influenced hygiene practices. Bathhouse owners frequently came into conflict with barbers and surgeons, who accused them of stealing their clients by offering medical services. Bath operators, known in some places as baiders, had an ambiguous reputation. Although many were trained and approved by their city's guilds, more established doctors and surgeons looked down on them. Despite these professional rivalries, bathhouses played a crucial role in maintaining public health, making medical care accessible to a broader portion of the population. Charlemagne, the great Frankish emperor, who ruled in the 8th and early 9th centuries, was known for his love of baths. His biographer Einhard recorded that the emperor invited his sons and friends to join him in bathing pools. Members of his court and even soldiers were welcome, and at times more than 100 men bathed together. Charlemagne's palace in Aachen was built precisely because of the local thermal springs, known since Roman times as aquae grani, in reference to a Celtic deity associated with healing waters. The thermal complex the emperor ordered to be built was a demonstration of power and sophistication, but also a practical recognition of the benefits of regular bathing. For peasants and common workers, who constituted the vast majority of the medieval population, options were more limited. Most people washed their hands and faces regularly, as this was considered good etiquette in an age when cutlery was still a rarity and meals were consumed with the hands. Health manuals of the time emphasized the importance of removing dirt and grease from the body. The 14th century Italian physician Mino de Minori, in his work on health regimens, wrote that bathing cleaned the external parts of the body of the dirt left by exercise. Personal hygiene was a real concern, even if the available means were limited. In the countryside, where the majority of the European population lived, bathing options were simple. A dip in a nearby river or lake, a wash with a damp cloth near an animal watering trough, or, for those with the resources, water heated in a basin. In the villages there were no public bathhouses, but this did not mean that peasants lived in complete filth. The expectation was that everyone would perform a basic cleaning, washing at least their face, armpits, and private parts at least once a day. This practice was called washing from top to bottom, and it was considered the minimum acceptable for any civilized person. Clothing played a crucial role in maintaining medieval hygiene. Linen, in particular, was considered the hygienic fabric par excellence. Light, absorbent, and easy to wash, linen was used as undergarments by all social classes. Even the poorest sought to have at least one change of linen underwear, which was changed and washed regularly. Wool, although excellent for outer clothing, was difficult to wash and tended to retain odors. The solution was to use linen as a barrier between the body and the woolen clothes, absorbing sweat and dirt before they contaminated the more expensive and difficult to clean pieces. Medieval cities faced immense sanitary challenges that went far beyond personal hygiene. The issue of human waste disposal was particularly problematic. In the absence of sewage systems like those that existed in ancient Rome, solutions were improvised. Bucket latrines, outhouses, and cesspools were used to collect human waste. In more modest houses, a simple hole in the floor or a bucket was all there was. Excrement was then emptied into rivers, streams, or simply into the streets, contaminating the environment and contributing to the spread of diseases. In some cities, small natural watercourses that ran through urban areas were used to carry away liquid waste. Over time, many of these streams were covered, transforming into the first medieval sewers. The Fleet River in London is a classic example of this process. What began as an open-air watercourse gradually became an underground sewer channel. In Paris, open channels known as gutters ran down the center of some streets. These channels, called divided streets, literally separated the streets into two halves while carrying wastewater down the middle. The first closed sewer built in Paris was designed by Hugues Aubiard in 1370. Located on Rue Montmartre, it was about 300 meters long. The primary goal of this innovation was not so much waste management, but rather to contain the nauseating stench that emanated from open-air wastewater. Concern with odors was closely linked to the miasmatic theory of disease, which dominated medical thought at the time. It was believed that bad air, laden with miasmas, was the cause of many illnesses. Therefore, eliminating foul odors was seen as a way to prevent disease. While most of Europe struggled with improvised solutions for its sanitation problems, a small republic at the southern tip of the continent was decades ahead of its time. Dubrovnik, then known by the Latin name of Ragusa, was a commercial city-state on the shores of the Adriatic Sea. In 1272, the rulers of Ragusa codified a set of statutes that included detailed regulations on the construction of cesspools and channels for the removal of dirty water. This pioneering legislation reflected a sophisticated understanding of the relationship between sanitation and public health. Throughout the 14th and 15th centuries, the Ragusans built a sewage system that impresses even to this day. With minor modifications and repairs over the centuries, this system remains operational. The city was also a pioneer in other areas related to public health. A medical service was established in 1301, and the first pharmacy was opened in 1317, operating continuously until today. In 1377, Ragusa instituted the first documented quarantine system in history, requiring visitors from areas affected by epidemics to remain isolated for 40 days before entering the city. The term quarantine itself derives from this Ragusan practice. The concern for public health in Ragusa was not altruism, but rather commercial pragmatism. As a center of international trade, the city depended on the constant flow of merchants and goods. An epidemic could devastate not only the population, but also the economy. The Ragusan rulers understood that investing in sanitation and disease control was investing in the prosperity of their republic. This enlightened vision placed them far ahead of their European contemporaries. Epidemics were the most feared scourge of medieval life. The first major pandemic to hit Europe after the fall of Rome was the Plague of Justinian, which devastated the Byzantine Empire and Mediterranean lands between 541 and 542. Successive waves of this plague continued to hit the region for centuries, but no epidemic compares in scale and impact to the Black Death, which swept through Europe between 1347 and 1351, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, and transmitted by fleas that infested rats. The Black Death killed between 30 and 50% of the European population. Some estimates suggest that up to 50 million people perished. The Black Death arrived in Europe via Genoese merchant ships that had departed from the city of Kaffa in Crimea, where they had been besieged by Mongol forces. According to accounts of the time, the Mongols, whose army was being decimated by the disease, catapulted infected corpses over the city walls in a primitive form of biological warfare. The Genoese who managed to escape carried the plague with them across the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. When the ships arrived at the ports of Sicily, Genoa, and Venice, most of the crew members were already dead or dying, covered in black buboes that oozed blood and pus. From the Italian ports, the plague spread like an uncontrolled wildfire. Within a few months, it reached Rome and Florence, two cities at the center of an elaborate network of trade routes. By mid-1348, the Black Death had reached Paris, Bordeaux, Lyon, and London. The speed of spread was terrifying. The symptoms were terrible: high fever, frequent vomiting of blood, intense pain throughout the body, and the characteristic buboes, swells the size of eggs that appeared in the groin, armpits, and neck. Most of those infected died within 3 days. There was no cure, no effective treatment, and the medicine of the time was powerless. Paradoxically, the Black Death may have contributed to the decline of public bathhouses in Europe. While during the Middle Ages, baths were seen as health promoters, in the aftermath of the plague, a new theory began to gain strength. It was believed that hot water opened the pores of the skin, allowing the miasmas of the plague to enter the body. This belief, combined with the spread of syphilis, led to the gradual closure of these establishments. The Dutch philosopher Erasmus of Rotterdam, writing in 1526, lamented the disappearance of the bathhouses that were so popular in Brabant only 25 years earlier, blaming the new plague for having taught people to avoid them. Human waste, despite its repulsive character, had significant economic value in medieval and post-medieval Europe. With the adoption of gunpowder as a weapon of war, the demand for saltpeter, an essential component of this explosive mixture, skyrocketed. Saltpeter, or potassium nitrate, was produced naturally by the decomposition of organic matter, especially excrement. In many European countries, municipal latrines became important sources of raw material for saltpeter production. In London, the contents of the city's privies were collected every night by commissioned carts and transported to specially designed beds where they were processed. These nitrification beds were large rectangles of earth enriched with manure, rotting straw, and human waste. The material was regularly moistened with urine, sewage water, and liquids from privies and cesspools. The mixture was periodically turned over to promote oxygenation. Over months or years, bacteria transformed nitrogenous compounds into nitrates, which crystallized on the surface of the earth. These crystals were then collected, dissolved in water, purified, and concentrated. The final product was saltpeter, which, mixed with charcoal and sulfur, formed the black powder that fueled the cannons and muskets that were transforming the art of warfare. In the 16th century, a technological innovation was being conceived in England. Sir John Harington, a courtier, poet, and translator, was the godson of Queen Elizabeth II. Harington had been banished from the court for sharing racy translations of Italian poetry with the Queen's ladies, but he used his forced exile productively. At his estate in Kelston, near Bath, he designed and built the first flushing toilet in the modern world. Harington's device, which he named the Ajax, was ingenious for its time. It consisted of an oval basin about 60 centimeters deep, waterproofed with pitch, resin, and wax. The basin was connected to a cistern on the upper floor, from which water was released via a valve. When the user pulled a lever, the valve at the bottom of the basin opened, and water swept the contents into a cesspool below. It was a significant improvement over the chamber pots and latrines that dominated the sanitary arrangements of the time. Queen Elizabeth, despite her earlier displeasure with her godson's literary antics, was intrigued by the invention. When she visited Harington's estate in 1592, she tried the new device herself and was so impressed that she ordered one to be installed at her Richmond palace. Harington described his invention in a book published in 1596. The title was an elaborate pun, as Jakes was a slang term of the time for a toilet. Despite the royal patronage, Harington's invention did not become popular in his time. The necessary plumbing infrastructure simply did not exist in most residences. Furthermore, the device lacked an S-shaped trap to block the foul gases rising from the cesspool, a problem that would only be solved nearly 2 centuries later. The flushing toilet would have to wait for the Industrial Revolution to become viable on a large scale. The American term, John, for a toilet is a tribute to the English inventor. Reflecting on the history of hygiene and sanitation in medieval Europe, it is important to avoid both the romanticization and the excessive demonization of the past. Medieval Europeans were not the filthy ignoramuses that popular stereotypes suggest. They cared about cleanliness, valued bathing, and developed creative solutions to the sanitary challenges of their time. At the same time, technological limitations and the lack of scientific understanding regarding the causes of diseases meant that their best intentions were often not enough to prevent epidemics and high mortality. The history of medieval sanitation is, ultimately, a story of human adaptation to circumstances. When the Roman Empire fell, the infrastructures it had built gradually deteriorated, but the human desire for cleanliness and health persisted. New institutions took on part of the responsibility for public welfare, and when crises like the Black Death revealed the limitations of these practices, medieval societies were forced to innovate once again, developing concepts like quarantine that remain relevant to this day. The journey from medieval latrines to modern sanitation systems was long and arduous. It took centuries for scientific discoveries about germs to transform our understanding of hygiene. And even today, billions of people live without access to basic sanitation, reminding us that the struggle medieval Europeans waged is far from over. The next time you turn on a faucet or flush a toilet, remember the long history that made these simple gestures possible. Remember the Byzantine bath builders, the legislators of Ragusa, the workers who cleaned medieval streets. Remember Sir John Harrington and his pioneering Ajax. And remember the millions of people who died throughout the centuries for lack of clean water and proper sanitation. The history of hygiene is, in many ways, the history of civilization itself. If this journey through time touched you in some way, if you learned something new or saw the past through different eyes, consider subscribing to this channel. Each subscription helps us continue bringing historical narratives like this one, exploring the forgotten corners of the human experience and illuminating the connections between the past and the present. Leave a comment telling us what surprised you most in this story, or share some curious fact about historical hygiene that you know. Like this video if it added something to your day, and come back soon for more documentaries that challenge what we thought we knew about the world of our ancestors. History is never as simple as it seems, and there is always more to discover. Until the next journey.